Welcome to the Good Girls Club. Hey! This time we roll Karma made that dicty quiz. I hope it gets your palate wet and lubed for our Gilmore Girls. I almost said podcast. Jesus fucking. Okay, let me start off. Again, welcome in everybody to the Good Girls Club in Hood. We are currently reading a Gilmore Girls fan fiction called Parallel Lines. If you've never watched Gilmore Girls, it really is fantastic. It's about two women, a mother and daughter, who have a very, very close relationship, maybe a little bit codependent, and I mean a lot codependent. A beautiful, complicated, but like sweet, comforting love. Like, it's just, Gilmore Girls is like sitting on your couch with your favorite person, wrapped in a blankie with a hot cocoa. It really is a delightful, heartwarming, and I am not one of those people who typically watch things like that. You can't stop. It's addictive. It's fun. However, the caveat to that is, I don't like, and most fans do not like the way it ended. So Gilmore Girls runs throughout the seasons. It has, all the episodes, but then they did a Netflix, essentially a continuation 10 years later called A Year in the Life, which was supposed to right all the wrongs of the final season of Gilmore Girls. Well, I think in some ways it did right some of the wrongs, and I think in some ways it made things worse, maybe. So this episode of the Good Girls Club is all about a fan fiction that's fixing the sort of holes and fuck-ups of A Year in the Life. So where that starts is that we started out the first two chapters with Rory. Rory is currently pregnant with Logan's baby. She is at Luke and Lorelai's wedding in Stars Hollow, and she sees Jess and all that old flame. If you're unfamiliar, again, with the characters, please feel free to always ask, who's who. Everyone in here can tell you. Rory really has three men that she sort of were big men in her life, that were important in her life. Dean, Jess, and Logan. Rory is also not a character that is very good about making decisive decisions. So you see her, she has that sort of millennial burnout that happened to a lot of millennials of that time frame of a prodigy, the love child of the town, could do no wrong, could never fail. And honestly, no one ever really let her fail. Can't take any criticism. The minute she gets a knock, she gets knocked down. And then we see in the Year in the Life, now she's in her 30s and she's burnt out. She's sort of floating, directionless, doesn't really know what to do herself. And Jess, in A Year in the Life, suggests that she writes a book about her relationship with her mom and her relationship with herself. And so we start out Parallel Lines, which is a fix-it style, smutty fan fiction where we're gonna fix the wrongs of a year in the life. So basically what's happening is that all you've missed from the first two chapters is Rory sees Jess at the wedding and has all these old feelings that she, sort of, I don't even know if she ever let go of, but maybe she there was always Logan. He's comforting. He's she parallels her mom's life, right? So whatever. Anyways, I don't want to spoil anything. But anyways, so we see that they have this spark. In the second chapter, we see her moving back to New York and trying to establish herself as somebody who can take care of themselves. She's about to be a fucking mother. And unlike her mom, who gave birth to Rory at 16, Rory is a fucking adult. She should be able to do this. So she's trying to do this, and she's trying to write a book, and she's getting back into political journalism. So now we're gonna start chapter 3. We're only gonna read chapter 3 tonight. So are you guys ready? Are you ready? If chapter 3 is too short, we can always read chapter 4, which is a little bit steamier, but I just want to keep them under an hour, so we'll see where we shake out after the chapter 3. Okay, you guys ready? Okay. Oh fuck, I just skipped the page. Okay, here we go. Chapter 3 on a Wednesday in a cafe, January 11th, 2017. Rory. The city felt different in January. Everything sharper, more unforgiving. colder air, harsher winds, an unrelenting pace that left Rory both exhilarated and exhausted. The holidays had passed in a blur of travel between Stars Hollow and Brooklyn. Her days filled with unpacking boxes, settling into her new apartment, and diving into work with desperate focus she'd perfected in college during finals week. Her apartment was finally starting to feel like home, though home was still a concept she was learning to define in singular terms. She'd been trying to make the small space truly hers. Books stacked on every surface, Bell and Sebastian and Smith records leaning against her makeshift stereo setup. Soft blankets draped over secondhand furniture her mother had declared full of character. The walls were covered with vintage frames they'd scavenged on weekend thrift missions, an eclectic gallery of old movie posters and postcards. By the front window, I feel like I have to blow my nose. Sorry. Gross. By the front window sat her desk, perpetually littered with notebooks, coffee rings, and half-scribbled sentences she'd wrestled into shape late at night. It wasn't fancy, but it was becoming something that belonged to her. The solitude felt strange, though. Not bad, just weird. No roommates, no temporary furniture she'd had to leave behind at the next place. No addresses that never quite stuck in her memory because why bother? This apartment was hers. The lease had her name on it, singular, and she'd actually unpacked everything instead of living out of boxes like she might need to move again tomorrow. She wanted this. She just hadn't expected it to feel so unfamiliar. She couldn't pinpoint when staying in one place for longer than a few weeks had become so strange, when she stopped craving the stability she'd once taken for granted. But she was desperate to feel that rootedness again, to create a space she actually wanted to be in, something that felt distinctly hers, a foundation where she could finally build the life she'd been putting off for years. She'd thrown herself into work with an intensity that would have made her 22-year-old self proud and her mother concerned, saying yes to every freelance assignment she could manage, keeping herself busy enough to avoid lingering too long in the quieter corners of her mind where doubt lived and fear thrived. The book was making slow but steady progress. Good days where words flowed like she remembered they used to be. Bad days where she stared at the cursor blinking mockingly at her, wondering if she'd used up all her talent in college and was now just coasting on fumes and false confidence. And then there was the pregnancy. 13 weeks, officially in the second trimester, though her body didn't seem to have gotten the particular memo. She still wasn't showing much, just enough that she started favoring loose sweaters and had retired her skinny jeans to get back to the back of the closet. The fatigue was supposed to be getting better now, and some days it was, but others she still felt exhausted by noon. Certain smells were the worst. Newspaper ink, her neighbor's vanilla candles, which seemed to seep through the walls at all hours. Her old laundry detergent that now made her gag. She switched to unscented everything and had started breathing through her mouth on the subway. Some days, she felt almost normal, energetic enough to tackle her writing and convince herself she had everything under control. And others, she'd find herself sitting on the floor of the bathroom at 6 a.m., trying to remember who she used to be before everything became so complicated. She still hadn't told Logan. Every time she opened her laptop or picked up her phone, she felt that familiar tightness. Her hands would shake slightly, fingers hovering over his name. There was always an excuse. Wrong timing, not the right words, uncertainty about what she even wanted from him. What was the right thing to say when you were carrying the child of a man you once loved, who was now engaged to someone else? Logan had proposed to her a decade ago, and she'd said no. She hadn't been ready to give up what felt like the first truly open chapter of her life, hadn't wanted to settle into marriage when the world seemed infinite with possibility. But over the years that had followed, they kept finding their way back to each other. She'd call him when campaign work brought her near his city, send him late-night texts after a few too many drinks, unable to resist the pull of something familiar when everything felt ambiguous. The comfort he provided, the easy intimacy of someone who'd been there through her most uncertain years. Logan was the risk taker who pushed her towards adventures she never dare attempt alone, but also the failsafe who could sweep in and make everything easier when her life got too complicated. But was it love, or just her inability to be alone? Because despite all those reconnections, all those moments of falling back into old patterns, she never actually wanted to fully get back together with him. And now her inability to just walk away, to leave well enough alone, was what was about to blow up not only his life, but his future wife's as well. That weakness would tie them together forever. Jess was a different problem entirely. She was trying to rebuild something with him. Friendship, maybe, if that's what you could call their past few careful conversations, all while carrying this secret that felt like it might destroy any possibility between them before it could even begin. How could she tell him that she'd once again managed to complicate her life beyond repair? She had no idea if he was even interested in being a real part of her life, or if this was just professional courtesy, helping an old friend with her book. It wasn't fair to expect anything more from him, and she had no right to ask. This was her mess to clean up. So she stayed quiet, wrapped in a silence that felt both protective and suffocating. Instead, she focused on work. Politico had picked up a few of her political op-eds, pieces that felt sharp and necessary in a way that reminded her why she wanted to be a journalist in the first place. With a steady stream of deadlines plus doctor's appointments that felt surreal and interviews that kept her mind occupied, her days blurred together into something almost normal. Almost. She hadn't heard from Jess since Christmas. Not that she was counting or anything. She started typing messages to him approximately 17 times before deleting them and placing her phone face down on her desk, telling herself he was probably busy with the move and expansion plans and she didn't want to bother him. But the truth was simpler and more pathetic. She was a coward. It was easier to tell herself she wasn't waiting for him to reach out, that it didn't mean anything when he finally did. Incoming text. Jess, in town for a few days, looking at office space for truncheon. Coffee? Simple, casual. Too casual for the way it made her heart do something acrobatic and embarrassing. Rory stared at the message, embarrassed at how many times she read it again and again. She should probably say no, or just not respond at all. That would be the responsible thing, right? Keep him at a distance, keep him safe from the disaster her life had become. He was here for work, for the press, not to get dragged into her mess. Her fingers started typing before her brain caught up. She deleted the response. Tried again, deleted that too. Everything sounded either too enthusiastic or too cold, and she had no idea which would be worse. She wanted to see him. That was the problem. Despite everything, despite the secret growing inside her and the conversation that still hadn't had, she wanted to see him. Rory. Sure, when and where. Safe, non-committal, the kind of response that could mean anything and therefore mean nothing at all. They settled on a small cafe in the village, halfway between her place in Brooklyn and wherever he was staying in Manhattan, accessible by the Q train without too many transfers. It was a place Jess had suggested, one of those understated spots tucked between a used bookstore and a vintage clothing shop. I think you'll like it, he'd said when he texted the address, which made her wonder if he'd been thinking of her when he picked it. The subway ride had given her too much time to think, to second-guess this meeting and wonder what she was getting herself into. His apology at Christmas kept replaying in her mind. Those soft, overdue words she hadn't realized how much she'd still wanted to hear after all these years. But his apology couldn't completely dissolve the emotional damage his disappearing act had caused, the scar he left when he vanished from Stars Hollow without explanation. She thought she'd never recover from that, and there was a reason she avoided getting too close to him again at all after all these years. Even thought of him dating other women could still unsettle her world in ways that felt dangerous and unwelcome. She knew she owed him apologies too, insights that had surfaced while writing her book, patterns of behavior she'd only recently begun to truly understand. But she wasn't sure she wanted this encounter to go any deeper than just surface level catching up about work and writing. Safe territory, friendly but distant. That is, until she saw him. He was leaning against the brick wall beside the cafe, a book in his hand, snowflakes catching in his hair. He wore dark jeans, and she could see the collar of a blazer beneath his wool coat. He must have had work meetings today, she realized. He looked so effortlessly cool. Like he could fit in easily in a boardroom as he could a dive bar. What was it about him that could undo her in a heartbeat? That unruly dark hair, the way he carried himself. She studied his profile as he read, completely absorbed in whatever was on the page, and for a moment it felt like they were 17 again, meeting up outside of Luke's. Except they weren't, and nothing was the same. And it suddenly hurt to acknowledge that she couldn't just walk up to him and kiss him and wrap her arms around him. Keep it cool and light, she told herself. She still didn't really know this Jess, this transformed version of himself. This successful, settled man was a stranger in so many ways. Well, I gotta say, she called out as she approached, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. You make business casual look good. The words slipped out, flirtier than intended, and she instantly wished she could reel them back. So much for casual. He looked up at her voice, and there it was, that half smile that began in his eyes before it even touched his mouth, the one that always made her feel like she was the only person in the room. Yes, still Jess, still lethal. What, this old thing? He tugged at the lapel of his blazer, closing the book with his finger, marking the page. Not exactly Armani, but it hasn't gotten me escorted out of any buildings yet. So I'm calling it a win. She grinned. Well, either way, you clean up nice, Mariano. Very publishing mogul in disguise, like Clark Kent, but with manuscripts instead of the phone booth. Oh, yeah, that's exactly the vibe I was going for, Jess said, shaking his head with that familiar half-exasperated fondness as he held the door open. After you. Inside, tucked away from the sting of the January air and the commotion of the street, they exchanged a brief hug, something that felt both natural and strange. They'd never been casual with touch before, she realized. Physical contact had always carried too much weight between them, held too much promise and peril to ever be simple. They lingered just long enough for her to catch the scent of his wood sage cologne and for him to feel real in a way memory couldn't replicate. You look great too, he murmured as they pulled back, his gaze lingering, taking in her coat buttoned high against the cold, her hair slightly windswept with a few lingering traces of snow, the light flush in her cheeks that was only partially from the weather. There was something in his expression, a careful attention that made her suddenly hyper-aware of herself, of the way she looked, of whether she seemed different in ways she couldn't control. Shall we? She asked, motioning toward the counter, desperate to break the moment before it could become something she'd have to think about later. They ordered. Her a decaf coffee and a croissant to share. Him a triple shot Americano. She got the way his eyebrows raised slightly at her drink choice, equal parts surprised and concerned. Decaf? He repeated, tilting his head. Since when do Gilmores voluntarily renounce caffeine? Isn't that against the family religion or something? She laughed. Sleep deprivation. I'm trying a new approach. Cutting back on caffeine to see if it helps me actually get some rest instead of lying awake staring at the ceiling until 3 a.m. Does your mother know? She'd hold a formal disownment ceremony, Rory said as she took her drink from the barista. But I'm blaming it on the new apartment. All the city noise again, getting used to being back. Jess paid for both, brushing off her protest with a small wave. Did you try blasting Metallica? Works like a lullaby if you commit. They found a small table by the window. The cafe's dim lighting cast warm shadows across shelves lined with books for sale, vintage paperbacks creating a cozy atmosphere that made her understand exactly why he'd thought she'd like this place. She watched him settle into his chair, shrugging off his coat with an unconscious charm, the kind that reminded her of why she spent so much of her senior year staring at him across Luke's diner. The intimate setting seemed to shrink the space between them in a way that felt both comforting and dangerous. "So," she said, cupping her drink, "how's the office search? Please tell me you're not getting suckered by brokers selling literary pedigree." Translation: a dead poet once spilled absinthe on the floor, and now the rent's double. Jess chuckled. "Saw 3 places today. One's promising if you don't mind a complete electrical overhaul and the ghost of failed startups. Contractor seemed confident, or at least he was very good at bluffing. Hard to tell. Got another showing later. Never a dull moment in the glamorous world of independent publishing. Apparently not." He sipped his coffee, eyes briefly scanning the room, a habit she remembered from years ago, always checking exits and corners like he expected he might have to bolt. "But it's good. We're growing. Submissions tripled this year, which is either great news or proof that everyone with a laptop thinks that they're the next Franzen." "Ah, the internet age," Rory said, breaking off a piece of croissant. "Democratizing the delusion. Everyone's story matters, but very few are worth 300 pages. The eternal editor's dilemma," Jess agreed. "But sometimes it's worth it. There's this manuscript that came in basically Middlemarch, rewritten through the lens of Reddit threads." Rory wrinkled her nose. "That sounds like torture." "It should be, but somehow it's not. It's biting, it's clever, and it made me care about a guy whose whole arc is moderating a subreddit on failed utopias." Rory laughed. "So Dorothea Brooke meets Black Mirror. Naturally, you're sold." Jess smirked. "Hey, if the internet's good for anything, it's reviving Victorian angst with fewer pages. Eliot would have killed for broadband." Despite herself, she laughed, and so did he, before they both retreated into their mugs. Through his smile, she caught the tiredness at the edges of his eyes. "What about you? You sleeping at all?" she asked, aiming for casual, not probing. His smirk was more shields than grin. "Couple hours a night on a good day. But hey, who needs REM cycles when you've got lease negotiations and late night edits and the pressure of keeping a small business afloat?" The joke landed flat, at least for her. She knew that look. The burn yourself out look. The dedication that ate you alive and left you calling it passion. "That sounds unsustainable," she said quietly. He shrugged, gaze skimming the window. "One minute you're thrilled about signing new authors. The next you're wondering if you should learn accounting or just sell a kidney on eBay. But hey," he paused, seeming to catch himself. "Enough about my exciting descent into entrepreneurial madness. What about you, aside from our shared bad sleep habits, I mean?" "Good," she said simply, though her eyes lingered on him, not buying his deflection. "Things are good." He studied her then, gaze so intent it made her pulse skip. "You look," he hesitated, "lighter since last time. Different. Good different." She felt heat rise in her cheeks and it hoped like a reaction to the warm cafe rather than the way he was looking at her. "The move's been good for me. Mom hated it. She wasn't exactly thrilled about me leaving Stars Hollow again, but I needed the space to figure things out." Jess tilted his head. "Why? It's not like you haven't lived here before. Although your subway skills were always a little questionable." She laughed. "Hey, I only got lost in Chinatown once." They both smiled. "But she worries," Rory admitted, sipping her coffee. "I think she was just getting used to having me close again. We spent so much time apart when I was traveling, and then when I came back to Stars Hollow, we fell into our routine again. Friday night dinners, movie marathons, the kind of mother-daughter bonding we missed when I left for college. She likes to pretend my absence doesn't affect her, but I know it does. Parental attachment issues and all of that." Jess let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that." The comment hung in the air, his complicated childhood hovering in a place that felt too intimate for a casual coffee catch-up. She gave him a small smile before continuing. She also thinks I'm running away from something instead of toward anything. Are you? He asked, voice quiet, careful. Maybe a little, she said honestly. Stars Hollow is comfortable, safe. But lately, safe feels like giving up. And I don't know, these days I think I'd rather fail on my own terms and than have to lean on anyone else. A beat passed. She could see Jess contemplating whether to comment, something flickering in his expression like he wanted to but thought better of it. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table, closing some of the distance between them. So listen, he said, his voice lower. I've been thinking about your book. Her stomach tightened, that familiar combination of hope and terror that always accompanied discussions of her writing. Oh? Should I be flattered or terrified that I've been occupying space in that overcrowded brain of yours? Definitely flattered. Real estate up there is premium. His smile was quick. His smile was quick before he turned serious. I can't guarantee Truncheon can publish it, not without running it by Matthew and Chris first. And you know how they feel about anything that might be commercially viable. But if you want, I could help with edits, clean it up, tighten the structure, make sure it's an easy yes when they do read it. They still owe me for that poetry collection that actually did some money. She felt her stomach flutter, a combination of gratitude and something more complicated. You don't have to do that, Jess. I know you're swamped with expansion and finding office space and probably a million other crises I don't even know about. I want to. His voice was quiet, certain. You don't need the help. Your writing is... He paused, seeming to search for the right words. You don't need me to make it better. But I can offer perspective. If I can help you see what's already there. You know your opinion means more to me than anyone's, she said. The words slipped out before she could stop them, more honest than she intended. She felt heat rise in her cheeks again and looked down at her hands. But I don't want a favor. I don't want you to feel obligated because we have history or because you suggested I write it in the first place. She tried for a laugh, but it came out shaky. Honestly, it might be too mortifying for anyone else to read. It's very personal, raw, the kind of thing that probably shouldn't see the light of day. Not a chance, Jeff scoffed. Anything you write is near perfection, Rory. Even your pro-con lists probably have better prose than half the manuscripts I see. He said it plainly, like it was fact, simple, certain. The kind of faith that felt both wonderful and terrifying. You definitely don't need me, he added, but the offer stands. Just in case you want someone who knows you, who knows your voice, to take a look before you send it out into the world. Something about the way he said it, the soft certainty, the implication that he still knew her after all these years, made her smile. She looked down, tracing the rim of her cup with one finger, trying to process what he was offering. It wasn't just editing, it was trust, intimacy, the kind of collaboration that required being vulnerable with someone who had the power to hurt you. Thanks, Jess, she finally said, looking up to meet his eyes. That would be really great. I mean, terrifying, but great. He offered a small smile, more genuine than his usual sarcastic grin. I'm in town for a few more days, dealing with contractors, leases, glamorous paperwork, but if you want, we could go over it together. Dinner? I promise to be gentle with your delicate artistic sensibilities. There was something almost hesitant in the way he said it, despite the joke, an edge of nervousness that surprised her. Jess Mariano, nervous? It was like discovering that sharks could be vegetarians. I love that line. She smiled before she could stop herself. Dinner would be perfect. We can order and spread the pages across my coffee table like we're planning a heist. Plus, my place has the an added advantage of excellent takeout options and the distinct lack of other people. Friday? He asked, carefully neutral, like he was trying not to sound too eager. She raised her cup. It's a date. His smile was quick, almost boyish, tamped down as he looked into his coffee. The words hung, innocent enough to dismiss, but heavy with implication. He tapped his cup gently against hers, the sound soft but somehow significant, like they were sealing something more important than dinner plans. Friday, he echoed, and his voice was rougher than it had been a moment before. The space between them shifted, barely but unmistakably, like something had just been set into motion. They let the conversation drift after that, falling into easier topics, talks of what they were reading, the terrors of New York apartment hunting, and the eternal quest for the city's best late-night ramen. Easy things, familiar things. The kind of conversation that reminded her why she'd fallen for him in the first place. His quick wit, his unexpected knowledge about random subjects, the way he listened like every word she said mattered. But beneath it all, a quiet hum lingered. The pregnancy she still couldn't bring herself to mention. The book that was ostensibly about her mother, but really about every fault in her own life. The ways she defined herself against Lorelai. The men she'd let orbit her without ever quite letting them in. The endless tug of war between independence and intimacy. On the page, she found herself confessing things she'd never been able to say out loud. And sitting here across from him, she felt it most of all. The ache of all the words she'd never given him. All the truth she'd only managed to put into paragraphs because face to face, they felt too raw, too vulnerable. How could she let him read those pages? How could she let him see her that clearly when she spent so many years keeping him at a careful distance? Outside, the cold pressed against the cafe windows. January reminding them both that winter was just getting started. But Rory barely felt it. Something warmer had taken root. Something that felt like possibility and danger and the kind of hope she trained herself not to trust. Something new, or maybe something very old, finally beginning again. That is the end of chapter 3. That is the end of chapter 3. How's our time? I feel like this is a good place because chapter 4 is very long. Like, very long. It's like 50 pages, I think. Okay, I think this is a good, because chapter 4 is also very, very girthy and a lot happens in it. I think we should save chapter 4 and we'll just, it's a good cliffhanger. You will like chapter 4. All right, so chapter 4 is very dense and there's a lot that happens in it. So we'll save chapter 4 for our next Money Saturday. That was a good, like, little short and sweet one. It's weird because some chapters are really short and then some are really, really, really long. I have so many questions and so many concerns. What are they, Un-American Cheeseburger? Do you have any questions, concerns? Good night, Sophia. Thank you so much. How are we feeling? If it's long, I think it's a long one and, like, it's also a lot happens in it. Some good stuff happens in it, some not good stuff happens in it. It's very, very long. So honestly, as I've talked to you guys about this book is definitely a slow burn. But what's really nice is I feel like if any of you guys have watched the show, the biggest differentiating thing for me when I read the other fan fictions over this one is their dialogue when they're talking sounds like the show. It's honestly really hard to breathe. I now understand why the actress Lauren Graham was talking about she used to talk so fast and would the like writing was so fast and there was so much in each sentence that she would like literally get dizzy. There's so much. It's written just like the show, which I really like because Gilmore Girls has a very distinct writing style that's hard to replicate. It sounds so much like Jess. Also, can I talk about this? Is weird. So Jess, if you don't know the actor, what's the actor's name? Jess would be my downfall. Jess would be all of our downfalls. He's beautiful. Honestly, can I be for real? All three of them, Dean, Jess, and Logan, are beautiful men. On the show, they are absolutely stunning. What's the actor that plays Jess again? So Jess, the actor that plays Jess has he has a really interesting mouth. The way he talks, like, his lip is sort of like almost giving like Stallone. I don't know why. I don't know. It's so cute. Whenever I talk for him, I feel my lip feeling like it wants to somehow like do what he does, which is so kind of weird. Milo, he's so handsome. But like, it's so weird. I feel like I want to like, because when she talks about his half smile, she's specifically talking about that actor's half smile. Yeah, Milo Ventimiglia, I don't know how to even say that. He has this very interesting mouth, and it's a smirk, and the way he talks, he has like this thing. I don't know how to explain it. It's so cute, but I feel like my mouth wants to do that, which is funny. Jess feels like Jess. I think Jess feels like Jess, and can I also talk about how I feel like Rory? So a little bit about my interpretation of Gilmore Girls. Rory, I don't think anything like Rory. I relate to Hermione much more if we're talking about our two, fan fictions that we've read. To me, Rory, the level of indecisiveness and cowardice is nothing like me, right? But what I like about this writer is Rory. Rory is indecisive and a coward, and she often takes the easy route, which also a lot of other writers, I've only read 3 now Gilmore Girls fan fiction, so I don't know, but like I read the most popular one. So like, but the other 2, Rory is like, to me, was written as almost like a self-insert for women that are not like Rory. You know what I mean? Rory she's not often brazen or bold. That's how she's not like her mom. Lorelai is very brazen, very bold, speaks her mind, and is very decisive and very strong-willed. That's really not Rory. And so I really appreciate that there's so much internal strife that you see Rory going through, because that is what's happening during the show, that we don't get to hear the internal monologue, but that's what is happening. Just me my downfall. He's so handsome. It really is. I can picture them. I think that's why I chose this one to read to you guys, even though it's not even finished being written, which is scary, because what if the ending's bad? But when I read the other 2, it just didn't feel like the characters. This one feels like I can see it, I can smell it, I can feel it. The way it's also like sort of overly written, is also so Gilmore Girls. Like, it's great. Yeah, how is this relationship legal? And does he own the red flag factory? So this relationship is legal because they're both legal consenting adults, and they're both adults. They're 30 years old, by the way. And she is a red flag. Honestly, she really is a red flag. Rory has way so for anyone who doesn't watch Gilmore Girls, obviously there's tons of spoilers, but Rory is a chronic cheater. She cheats on, she's pretty much a constant mistress. So with her first boyfriend, Dean, she and Dean date. She breaks up with him because she couldn't tell him she loves him. They break up. Then when they get back together, he is married. And she loses her virginity to Dean, who was a married young man. Okay? While she was with Dean, she emotionally cheated on him with Jess, who's this guy. Okay? She's a chronic cheater. So she emotionally cheated on Dean before Dean got married with Jess. Okay? And then when she was with Logan, I don't think she ever really cheated on Logan. I think she was probably the most faithful with Logan, but she was still indecisive. She loved Logan, though. She really loved Logan. And she also, I love Logan. I was always I couldn't decide if I liked Logan or Jess better. I never could decide. I like them both. But I think I honestly, personally would have chosen Logan. But Logan is, what, anyways. But then in A Year in the Life, she becomes Logan's mistress. Logan is engaged to a woman in A Year in the Life, and Rory is his mistress. So she is like a chronic cheater, and she emotionally cheats as well as physically cheats, which is insane. She had this bullshit relationship in A Year in the Life. What the fuck was that guy called? For some reason, they made Rory have this boyfriend that she kept forgetting about, which was really mean, and she cheated on him a bunch. So she is like, no guilt, she cheats. which is funny because you talk like Lorelai. I do talk like Lorelai, Addie. I do talk like Lorelai. I still feel like though the I talk very quickly, but I still feel like I breathe more than they do. His smirk. Milo was in This As Us as well. I've never seen This Is Us. Knees weak. It's the same half smile that Gabriel Mach has in Suits. Rory's a mouse. Rory is a mouse. Like, that's, I think, one of the biggest things about Gilmore Girls is that there's always supposed to be this like this, Rory is just like Lorelai. Like she's not. Lorelai is not a mouse. I love Lorelai. I don't give a fuck. I love Lorelai. Lorelai is not a mouse. Lorelai is that's Rory's mom. Lorelai is very different. And I think that's why I really liked this story, because this story, Parallel Lines, is literally gonna discuss this. How different she really is from her mom. Or she thinks it's fastball, so Lorelai talks fast. But yes, she copied the relationship style of her dad, Christopher. So I think what's so interesting is there's so much parallel between her and her mom and like their story and their love life and this constant need to like push. I mean, look at Lorelai, how hard she pushed Luke away for so long, right? But what's interesting is, to me, the biggest parallel is Jess Luke, Logan Christopher. Logan is a better man than Christopher, because Christopher is actually a piece of shit. But that is the obvious comparison. Santa Maria, what is emotionally cheating? Emotionally cheating, Peanut, is if you are in a monogamous, closed relationship and you are giving sexual, like, desire conversations. It's like talking with somebody that goes even beyond flirting. You are emotionally cheating. You're giving someone emotional intimacy that is reserved for your significant other only. That's what emotional cheating is, and which is really common. People can, and it's to some people, emotional cheating is worse than physical cheating, and vice versa. But so Rory, like, emotional cheating is like, for instance, she was dating Dean. This Stars Hollow has all these like weird fucking traditions, right? There was this basket there was an episode where the girls make a basket and boys fucking pay for their basket. I know that sounds like sex, but it's not. They make like a fucking care package basket. A guy buys the basket, and then whatever the proceeds go to the town or like a charity or whatever. Rory makes a basket. Dean was set to buy it. She made it like for her boyfriend to buy it. Jess shows up. He then outbids Dean to buy the basket, and any good girlfriend who is not gonna emotionally cheat on her boyfriend would be like, go fuck yourself, Jess. I'm not going on this date with you. Even if the rules apply, keep your money. This is going to Dean. But instead she goes, I have to, Dean. I have to go on this intimate picnic date with Jess. I have to. Like, it's the rules. And then she goes and has a date where she is actively flirting and giving emotional intimacy to Jess. She doesn't kiss him. They don't touch. But it's still a form of emotional cheating. And it's so fucked up. You give them attention and you thought normally say, exactly. I didn't know. I was saying, it's definitely a thing. How are these men so down bad for her? So, Final Girl, that's such a good question. I think that in the context of the show, I'm not surprised, because like, Stars Hollow and Lorelai think that Rory is the second coming of Christ. They literally think she is the most perfect human being to walk the face of the earth. In reality, the actress, again, I'm blanking on names today, is gorgeous. She's beautiful. And I gotta be honest, there's a little bit of like a pick-me vibe with the Gilmore Girls, because I can eat whatever I want, say so fucking pin skinny, and we're not like other girls, and there's a lot of that, which Alexis Bledel, yes, there's a lot of that shit that happens. It's the era of the time too. They had to make like a girl special and differentiated in some way. But I think that Rory, what's nice about Rory is she's beautiful and she has brains. She's well spoken and she has a great sense of humor, and I think that's why they're so down bad for her, as you said. However, I also do think that, like, realistically, it's a small town. there wouldn't be this many attractive people in a small town anyways. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there wouldn't be that many. I mean, literally Jared Padalecki, Jesus. Lorelai's freaking tiger. Lorelai is a freaking tiger. Like, Lorelai is, I have watched Gilmore Girls now probably like 8 or 9 times, the whole show all the way through, including A Year in the Life, because I like to torture myself. Every watch through, I dislike Rory more. I love Lorelai more, and I love Emily. I've just grown to love Emily so much. I love Emily so fucking much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aber. I'm hydrating right now. Aber, welcome in. I love Emily, and I understand Emily with every single rewatch. I'm like, oh my God, I love this bitch. But Rory is not, I'm not a Rory girl. Rory doesn't resonate with me. That's not my style of who I am. Lorelai, she's still super flawed. There's still some real fucking bad shit over there. But I love Lorelai's tenacity. I love Lorelai's perseverance. I love her unrelenting spirit. I love that she just is a fighter. I always love my women like that. And then Emily's the same way. And I think that also, I really love Emily's storyline. And for me, the continuation of Gilmore Girls, A Year in the Life, was saved because of Emily's beautiful storyline. Emily's storyline, the growth of Emily in that really is great. Like, they did her a solid in that one. Like, it's really good. Like, I don't think Lorelai does, I don't like the arc for Lorelai in A Year in the Life, and Rory, I certainly don't like it. That's why we're reading this right now. But Emily's storyline in A Year in the Life is truly beautiful. I love Lorelai. Me too. Bad boy Jess. I mean, who doesn't love a bad boy final girl? Listen, Aiden was hot pink motorcycle dude or boy in my fucking phone. Which, by the way, I found out like a lot of girls, when they're dating somebody, they give them a nickname before they're official, which I think is adorable. Like, they don't actually refer to you. Like, to my friends, I always referred to Aiden as hot pink mohawk guy. I think that's really cute. But anyways, back to this, and then we'll wrap up this episode. Still a better love story than Twilight Barely. Un-American Cheeseburger, yeah, for sure. Flips hair and walks in the sunset, which is exactly. I stop at 5. Yeah, I love Emily. Emily's great. The older I get, the more I resonate with Emily. Honestly, I love Sookie. You know what I don't like, though? The vasectomy storyline for Sookie. You know, I'm going to just say this, and then we're going to end this. If you've never watched Gilmore Girls, also, they do women with pregnancy and sex dirty. Dirty. Every single woman, when they have sex, is basically punished in some way. Like, it's actually insane. Do we discuss Lane? Should I discuss the sacrilege that is Lane? It's so fucked. I mean, like, we could go on a whole fucking rant about this, but it's an excellent show. It still is an excellent show. Rory was so hot. Rory is beautiful. She's still beautiful. Everyone loves a bad boy, Harry. And they do. There was a guy who had his girlfriend in his phone as Nikki Instagram. Well, that seems less like it. I don't think that's a cute nickname. A little triggered. Oh, poor Lane. Justice for Lane. Oh my God. Unfortunately, Lane is still in her predicament in this book. All right. So basically, next episode will be chapter 4. Chapter 4 is a very long chapter. It gets steamy. I'm very excited for chapter 4. And then also, we're probably going to read, depending again on the length and what kind of happens in the chapter, 1 to 2 chapters a night. We'll kind of go with the flow on that, but you'll always get obviously 1. Okay. So thank you for watching this episode of I Love a Bad Girl. Who doesn't like the bad boys, bad girls? All right, I love you guys. Thank you so much. If you are not on YouTube, !YouTube, I highly recommend you get over there so that you can watch. Thank you so much. Hold on, let me get the video back up. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Parallel Lines and the Gilmore Girls fan fiction. And if you would spam your Good Girls Club, I would appreciate it. All right, see you guys on the other side, cutie booties. Hold on. If you're out on the road, and I'll be there on your next hand. If you need, you home and grab your cheek. If you listen to me, I will leave Why?